Hello, my ladies of inestimable value. Ordinary is where dreams go to die. Most people spend their lives trying to fit in, blend seamlessly into the crowd, and avoid making waves. But Sigma females, they are the storm. They don't just stand out, they defy the very concept of normalcy. Here's a fact. Studies show that only a small percentage of the population naturally resists social conditioning. Sigma females belong to this rare breed. While the world pressures women to be predictable, accommodating, and easy to label, they refuse to play the game. They don't conform, they don't explain, and they certainly don't apologize for being different. If you've ever met a Sigma female, you'll know she's not your typical woman. There's something about her presence that feels like a plot twist in a movie you thought you had figured out. She moves in silence, but somehow she's the loudest in the room. She's detached, yet undeniably magnetic. She's calm, but capable of dismantling egos without lifting a finger. And let's be real, some people find that downright terrifying. So, what makes Sigma females so rare, so unforgettable, and so impossible to be ordinary? Buckle up, because this isn't your average list. This is the brutal, unfiltered truth about why Sigma females will never blend in, never be predictable, and never, ever be ordinary. Number 1. Their minds operate on a frequency most can't decode. A Sigma female's mind is not like everyone else's. She doesn't just take things at face value. She dissects them, pulls them apart, and analyzes what's beneath the surface. Most people see the world in black and white, but her mind is wired to notice the in-between, the patterns that others overlook, the details hiding in plain sight. This makes her unpredictable. Not because she's trying to be, but because her thoughts operate on a different frequency. Conversations with her don't follow the usual script. Small talk bores her, empty words don't impress her, and sugar-coated lies, she spots them before they're even spoken. People often find themselves either deeply fascinated by her or completely unnerved. There's rarely an in-between. She can read between the lines, sense what's not being said, and understand intentions before they even manifest into actions. This ability makes her a natural observer, someone who prefers to listen rather than speak. But when she does talk, every word has weight. This is also why she rarely connects with just anyone. Ordinary people operate on autopilot, saying and doing things because society tells them to. She doesn't function that way. She questions everything. She wonders why people follow trends without thinking, why they seek validation from strangers, why they pretend to be happy when they're not. This depth of thought makes her feel like an outsider in most settings. It's not that she isolates herself. She simply struggles to find people who think on her level. Because of how her mind works, she's often misunderstood. Some think she's too serious, too quiet, or even intimidating. But the truth is, she just has no patience for surface-level interactions. She's not interested in gossip, fake smiles, or forced friendships. She values depth, meaning, and authenticity, which makes her social circle incredibly small but deeply loyal. What makes her even more of an enigma is that she never advertises how differently she thinks. She doesn't feel the need to prove herself to anyone. She simply observes, understands, and moves accordingly. And while most people struggle to understand her, she understands them perfectly. That's what truly sets her apart. Number 2. They never crave a seat at the table. They build their own. A Sigma female doesn't beg for acceptance, and she certainly doesn't wait for an invitation. While most people spend their lives trying to squeeze into spaces that don't truly value them, she takes one look at the table, the rules, and the players, and decides it's not worth her time. She doesn't need validation from a group, an organization, or society to define her worth. If she sees a system that doesn't serve her, she doesn't complain or demand inclusion. She simply builds her own world where she makes the rules. This is why she thrives in solitude. It's not that she dislikes people, it's that she refuses to shrink herself just to be accepted. She watches how others compromise their beliefs, water down their personality, and exhaust themselves trying to be liked. And she knows that life isn't for her. She's not rebellious for the sake of it. She just refuses to force herself into spaces that don't align with who she is. This mindset extends into every aspect of her life. In her career, she doesn't waste time climbing someone else's ladder. She builds her own. She refuses to play office politics or engage in mindless competition for someone else's approval. Instead, she carves out her own lane, and by the time people realize what she's done, she's already miles ahead. In friendships and relationships, she doesn't chase after connections that feel forced or one-sided. She doesn't need to be part of a clique, a social circle, or a popular group to feel important. She chooses quality over quantity every single time. People often don't understand this level of independence. They assume she's antisocial, difficult, or even arrogant. But the truth is, she just values her time, energy, and peace too much to waste it on things that don't serve her. She knows that real power isn't about being accepted. It's about creating something so strong that others respect it, whether they like it or not. So while others scramble for a seat at the table, trying to impress the right people and say the right things, she's too busy building. And by the time they notice, she's already sitting at the head of her own. Number 3, they destroy the ego without saying a word. A Sigma female doesn't need to raise her voice, throw insults, or engage in petty battles to make someone feel exposed. She doesn't even have to try. Her mere presence is enough to shake those who rely on external validation, fake confidence, or social masks to feel important. She walks into a room and suddenly people start questioning themselves, not because she's doing anything to them, but because she forces them to see themselves clearly. Unlike most, she has no interest in pointless power struggles or proving herself. She doesn't waste time arguing, defending, or explaining. Instead, she operates from a level of self-assurance that instantly unsettles those who build their self-worth on fragile foundations. A person who thrives on attention, status, or manipulation will find themselves feeling small around her, not because she belittles them, but because she doesn't feed their ego. She sees through illusions. The charming manipulator who fools everyone else. She spots his game before he even plays it. The loud, overconfident person masking insecurity. She recognizes the cracks in their persona immediately. The attention seeker who needs validation to feel worthy. She doesn't give them the reaction they crave, leaving them feeling powerless. She doesn't engage, doesn't argue, doesn't play along, and that alone dismantles their entire sense of control. What makes her even more dangerous is that she does all of this without effort. Most people who try to humble others do so through direct confrontation, insults, or power plays. Not a Sigma female. She doesn't lower herself to that level because she doesn't need to. She simply exists, and that's enough. People who rely on ego-driven games either learn to respect her or stay far away. There's no in-between. Either they realize they can't manipulate, impress, or dominate her, or they crumble under the weight of their own insecurities. That's why she's both feared and admired. She is the quiet force that makes people rethink who they really are, without ever saying a word. Number 4, they withhold energy like a weapon. A Sigma female understands one brutal truth. Energy is currency, and she refuses to spend hers on anything that drains her. Unlike most people who pour themselves into situations, relationships, and conversations that leave them exhausted, she knows exactly when to withdraw. And when she does, it's not subtle, it's absolute. She doesn't do dramatic exits, emotional confrontations, or long explanations. If someone becomes a liability to her peace, she simply disappears. No warnings, no second chances, just silence. And that silence? It's louder than any argument could ever be. This is why people feel her absence more than they ever felt her presence. When she was around, they might not have realized how much energy she brought. Her insight, her depth, her ability to see through people. But once she's gone, it's like a power source has been cut off. The conversations lose their substance, the dynamic shifts, and the emotional high some people got from feeding off her presence disappears completely. This ability to detach instantly is what makes her untouchable. Most people stay in draining situations out of guilt, obligation, or fear of being alone. Not her. She sees energy for what it is, a finite resource that must be protected at all costs. She refuses to waste it on pointless debates, emotionally immature people, or situations that offer nothing in return. And here's the part that unsettles people the most. They can't figure out how to pull her back. There's no emotional leverage, no guilt trip, no manipulation that works. Once she's gone, she's gone. And the worst part for those who lost access to her? They realize too late that she was the one adding value all along. Her energy is her power, and she wields it like a weapon. Not by attacking, not by seeking revenge, but by doing something far more devastating. She withholds it. And when that happens, people feel it in ways they never expected. Number 5. They don't see love as a fairy tale. It's a power exchange. A Sigma female is not blinded by the illusion of love. She doesn't chase fairy tales, she doesn't fall for scripted romance, and she definitely doesn't believe in the idea that love alone is enough to sustain a relationship. She sees what most refuse to acknowledge. Love is a power exchange. And whether people admit it or not, every relationship operates on this dynamic. Unlike ordinary women who are conditioned to believe in grand gestures, unconditional devotion, and love conquering all, a Sigma female understands that attraction, respect, and control play a far greater role than most people want to admit. She knows that in every relationship someone leads and someone follows, whether emotionally, financially, or psychologically, and she refuses to be on the weaker side of that equation. This doesn't mean she's cold or incapable of deep love. In fact, she loves intensely, but she does so with awareness, not blind emotion. She doesn't lose herself in relationships. She doesn't become dependent. She never hands over her power in exchange for affection. Instead, she assesses every dynamic with a level of clarity that most women avoid. She knows when someone is trying to manipulate her, when a man is using love as a tool for control, and when emotional games are being played. And unlike most, she's unshakable. Men find this both alluring and terrifying. They're used to women who crave reassurance, who fear being alone, who will overlook red flags for the sake of love. A Sigma female does none of that. She remains detached, self-sufficient, and in control, even in love. She knows that the moment she becomes too emotionally dependent, she loses leverage. And leverage in love? It's everything. This is why she's never the one left begging, chasing, or broken. If a relationship stops serving her, she walks away without hesitation. Not because she doesn't feel, but because she refuses to lose herself. She understands the psychology of love better than most, and because of that, she plays the game in a way that ensures she never loses. Number 6. They have a built-in radar for manipulators. A Sigma female is every manipulator's worst nightmare. While most people fall for charm, emotional tricks, and carefully crafted lies, she sees straight through them. Not because she's paranoid or overly suspicious, but because her instincts are razor sharp. She picks up on micro-expressions, shifts in energy, inconsistencies in words, things most people overlook. She doesn't need proof to know when someone is being deceptive. She feels it. A pause that's a second too long, a smile that doesn't reach the eyes, a compliment that feels rehearsed. She catches it all. And the moment she senses something is off, she mentally files it away, waiting to see if the person proves her right. They almost always do. This is why she rarely gets played. Most people experience manipulation at least once before they learn. A Sigma female, on the other hand, avoids the trap before it's even set. She watches, listens, and lets people reveal who they truly are. And when they do, she doesn't argue, expose, or warn them. She simply disappears. Manipulators react to her in two ways. They either fear her or obsess over trying to win her over. The ones who fear her recognize quickly that their usual tactics don't work. Their charm falls flat, their guilt trips get ignored, and their attempts to control her fail miserably. So they either avoid her completely or act overly friendly, hoping to get on her good side. The other type, the ones who see her as a challenge, they push harder, try different tactics, and test her boundaries, but they always lose. She doesn't take the bait, doesn't engage in their games, and, most importantly, she never shows her full hand. By the time they realize she was onto them from the start, she's already gone, leaving them frustrated and powerless. This ability to detect manipulation isn't something she brags about. She doesn't need to. It's just part of who she is, a built-in radar that protects her from deception, ensuring that no one ever gets the upper hand. Number 7. They don't tolerate surface-level anything. A Sigma female doesn't do fake. She doesn't pretend to enjoy meaningless conversations, force herself into shallow friendships, or tolerate environments where people wear masks. The moment she senses that something lacks depth, she mentally checks out. Not out of arrogance, but because she simply can't function in spaces that don't stimulate her mind or soul. Small talk? It bores her to death. She's not the type to waste time discussing the weather, celebrity gossip, or the latest social trends. If the conversation doesn't challenge her or offer genuine insight, she'd rather sit in silence. And that's what makes her stand out. She's comfortable with silence, while most people fear it. She doesn't need to fill every moment with empty words just to avoid discomfort. Shallow friendships? She avoids them like the plague. She's not interested in forced social groups, gossip circles, or friendships based on convenience. If someone only wants to be around her when it benefits them, she's gone. She craves depth, authenticity, and real connection. And she would rather have 1 or 2 meaningful friendships than 100 surface-level acquaintances. Fake positivity? It irritates her beyond belief. She sees through the people who preach good vibes only, while avoiding real conversations about struggle, pain, and growth. She knows life isn't always pretty, and she respects those who can acknowledge that. Toxic positivity, the kind that ignores reality and shames people for feeling emotions, disgusts her. She doesn't believe in pretending everything is fine when it's not. She believes in facing reality, fixing what can be fixed, and moving forward with strength. Because of this, ordinary environments feel suffocating to her. The office politics, the social niceties, the performative interactions, it all drains her. This is why she's selective about where she spends her time and who she allows in her space. She doesn't entertain people who lack substance, and she has no patience for anything that feels forced or fake. While others settle for superficiality just to fit in, she chooses solitude or the rare company of those who truly get her. Because for her, anything surface level is a waste of time, and time is the one thing she refuses to waste. Number 8. They don't chase, they attract by default. A Sigma female never chases. She doesn't have to. While most people exhaust themselves trying to gain approval, fit in, or be noticed, she moves in silence, completely unbothered. And ironically, that's what makes her so magnetic. Her energy is rare. She doesn't try to impress, doesn't seek validation, and doesn't shapeshift to be liked. Instead, she focuses on her own path, minding her business and doing what fulfills her. And while others desperately try to be seen, she is the one people can't stop noticing. Friendships? She doesn't force them. She observes, lets people reveal their true nature, and naturally attracts those who are on the same wavelength. If someone disappears, betrays her, or proves to be inauthentic, she doesn't beg them to stay, she lets them go without hesitation. Relationships? She never chases a man. She understands that the moment she starts running after someone, she's already lost. She doesn't do desperation, she doesn't lower her standards, and she refuses to waste time proving her worth. If a man can't see it on his own, he's not the one. And what happens? The right kind of men, ones who are confident, self-assured, and deeply intrigued, come to her. Validation? She doesn't need it. She's not wired like the majority who crave external approval. She knows exactly who she is and doesn't require anyone else's confirmation. If the whole world misunderstands her, she's fine with that. She doesn't exist to be liked. She exists to be real. And because she never chases, people feel the difference. They sense her self-sufficiency, her unshakable presence, and her ability to walk away from anything that doesn't serve her. It creates an aura of mystery and power, one that naturally draws people in without her even trying. Attraction for her is effortless, not because she plays games, but because she embodies something most lack, genuine self-contentment. And that, it's more irresistible than anything else. Number 9. They operate on outlaw mode without breaking any rules. A Sigma female is the ultimate paradox. She follows no one, yet she never loses control. She doesn't conform to society's expectations, but she also doesn't go out of her way to rebel for the sake of it. She operates in what can only be described as outlaw mode, moving silently, strategically, and without drawing unnecessary attention. Unlike reckless rule breakers who act on impulse and end up sabotaging themselves, a Sigma female understands the game. She sees the invisible strings that control most people: social norms, peer pressure, approval seeking, and she simply refuses to be controlled by them. But she's not reckless. She doesn't make loud declarations about being different. She doesn't fight battles that aren't worth her time. And she never seeks validation for her independence. She just moves differently. This is why people can't figure her out. She's not following the traditional script of how women should behave, yet she's also not out here making foolish mistakes. She doesn't blend in, but she also doesn't stand out in an attention-seeking way. Instead, she operates in a way that makes people feel her presence, even in silence. In work, she doesn't blindly follow authority, but she also doesn't get herself fired. She knows how to navigate systems without losing her autonomy. In relationships, she doesn't submit to outdated gender roles, but she also doesn't waste time proving she's strong. She just is. And socially, she doesn't chase trends, participate in gossip, or force friendships, but she also never isolates herself out of bitterness. This controlled rebellion makes her powerful. She's not playing by the rules, but she's also not being reckless. She walks the line between detachment and influence, independence and connection, mystery and presence. People don't know whether to admire her, fear her, or try to decode her. But one thing is certain: she is never ordinary. Number 10. They are more than just strong women. They are unshakable forces. A Sigma female is not just a strong woman. Strength alone implies resilience, the ability to endure and push through struggles. But she is more than that. She is an unshakable force. And that is something far rarer and far more intimidating. See, strong women can still be tested. They can be challenged, broken, or worn down over time. But a Sigma female? She absorbs everything life throws at her and turns it into fuel. Hardships don't just make her stronger. They refine her, sharpen her, and make her even more untouchable. Where others bend under pressure, she becomes more dangerous in silence. This is what most people don't understand about her. They assume she's just tough, that she simply knows how to endure. But endurance is only part of the equation. She doesn't just survive, she transforms. She takes pain and turns it into wisdom. She takes rejection and turns it into self-mastery. She takes betrayal and turns it into impenetrable discernment. Every setback she faces doesn't weaken her. It erases any remaining weaknesses she had. And because of this, people can't shake her. They can try to break her spirit, but she remains unbothered. They can attempt to manipulate her, but she reads right through them. They can try to control her, but by the time they realize it's impossible, she's already 10 steps ahead. This is what separates her from the rest. She doesn't crumble, she doesn't beg, and she doesn't need validation. She moves through life on her own terms, not as a woman proving herself, but as a force that cannot be stopped. A Sigma female is not just different. She is a living contradiction that defies every expectation. She moves without seeking approval, attracts without chasing, and wins without competing. She is both presence and absence, both mystery and clarity, both fire and calm. And that's why she will never be ordinary. While the world tries to put her in a box, she's already built her own empire. While others fight for validation, she walks away with her self-worth intact. And while most people are shaped by their environment, she shapes the environment around her. She is not here to fit in, to be understood, or to be tamed. She is here to exist as she is, unapologetically. The most extraordinary thing about her: she doesn't need the world to recognize her power. She already knows she has it. If this resonated with you, don't just scroll away. Hit that subscribe button and join a community that values depth, independence, and raw truth. Like, comment, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you relate to the Sigma mindset? Let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, stay unstoppable.